let's begin. So this is the Janussoni Sutta. It's from the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of the Tens, 177 Sutta. Discourse to Janussoni. Actually, that's what it means, but I added the subtitle, which is, so who's getting all the merits? We never question, do we? But it's a legitimate question. So let's begin. At one time, the Brahmin Janussoni, having approached the Blessed One, exchanged friendly greetings with him, and after sitting on the side, said to the Blessed One, "Good Gautama, we Brahmins make offerings and perform memorial rites for our dead, departed ones, with the faith that the merits to be gained in making these offerings also benefit our dead relatives and loved ones by having them share of our gifts." By the way, this is an old Brahmanic ritual. It's called Shraddha. Shraddha, which later on Lord Buddha would use many of the terms that were available, but he would always add a nuance to it, a different Dhammic explanation. So we have Saddha in the Dhamma. Saddha is faith and confidence. It's no longer a ritual. In Sanskrit, it was, in this particular case, it was a ritual. A ritual that had to do with making a special kind of blessing, and always, not usually, it had to involve the male descendants. The family members, a male descendant, not a female, was given that task of doing the ritual. So they would call the Brahmins and they would chant, and there's a part of the ritual where the male had to offer those gifts in the name of their fathers, their parents, their grandparents, great-grandparents. That way, the tradition and the health, the spiritual health of those who have left behind, have gone beyond, they've died basically, that would ensure their safety in whatever type of existence they were in, because they are in good hands. And that's why you have this very perplexing, fearful tradition towards children that were born as females in that culture. Because that pretty much in that culture would eliminate the chance that those blessings will be offered in the future, because you don't have any sons. You don't have any male children to do the oblation, to do the blessings. So good luck. So it's not just your daughter is going to get married to someone else and your name is not going to be carried or something, but your future health, existence of your future, whatever form you will take, depends very much on the blessings. That's what the belief was. So this is what Janussoni is talking about. Later on it became more prevalent and it became part of Hinduism over the centuries. So remembering and honoring the dead parents, grandparents, once they're dead. So in a way, Shraddha was a way to connect the dead with the living, but it was conditional. It had to have certain conditions, like the ones I just mentioned about. It had to be from a male descendant. So it's very rigid, and it's very ritualistic. Now, of course, over time, like most cases, before Buddhism disappeared, the Dhamma disappeared in India, most people started to not practice, because rituals have this thing about them. They're very appealing, because they're very easy. You don't have to sit for half an hour, 1 hour, 2 days, retreats. All you have to do is just go and do a bunch of ceremonies, you're good to go. And plus your ancestors are happy. Hey, everybody goes home happy. It's easy. You see it all around. That's why you're seeing temples getting more and more empty in the world. It's becoming a place for rituals. You even go into other traditions. You go into Christianity. Most of Europe, if not all of Christian world, you go to the churches, they're empty. During the week, even the weekends sometimes. Maybe they just do like half an hour or 1 hour of mass and that's it, done. They're just a place for rituals now. Somebody gets baptized, somebody gets married, somebody dies. Well, that's what we have become in the Dhamma as well. Unfortunately. For the most part. That's one of the reasons why it disappeared. Because people have a tendency to look at the ritual. It's easy. And you can see the ritual. There's bells, you know, there's chimes, there's incense, depends if you go to Tibet, oh, even the outfit shows. Different kinds of bells, different types of bugles and trumpets and things were added. It's like an orchestra being added to the whole practice, which stops it from being a practice, it turns it into a ritual. So eventually we even had the Petavattu in the book of the Khuddaka Nikayas. If you remember, I mentioned in the Tipitaka talk I gave, the last book was the Khuddaka Nikaya, the book of the short sayings, the discourses. Well, Petavattu was added. A Peta means the book on hungry ghosts or spirits. It was never part of the canon. It was never part of it. And we know this because of Emperor Ashoka's pillars. Emperor Ashoka gave us a good, clear-cut evidence as to what was in the Tipitaka or what was not. He says, the Khuddaka Nikaya has 6 books. He names them. Petavattu is not in there. There you go. Commentarial tradition, there you go. Out. It's not part of the canon. But it was written because it was so appealing to the masses. There are also other books added to it. I think there was like 12 or 16 added on top of the 6. So I'm just telling you or sharing these things so that you know how it can be pervasive, how it can spread out so easily. Simply because there's less work, less practice, more ritual. Because ritual can be a good thing, but majority of the time it's not. Because people are by nature very lazy. Sorry, that's what we are. So, he goes on asking, Bhante, the gifts and offerings that we make, can they truly benefit our dead relatives and loved ones? He's really asking the question now. Are we just dumping away our money for the sake of rituals and traditions, or is there something to do with this? Like really, something really is happening? Or are we kidding ourselves? The priests are getting rich. The monks are getting rich. Can our dead relatives and loved ones truly share of our gifts? This is Lord Buddha's response. They can be of benefit when the conditions are right, Brahmin, but not when the conditions are wrong. Already you're knowing there's like going to be some explanation here. What then, good Gautama, are the right conditions and what are the wrong ones? This is Janussoni asking, clarification. Here, Brahmin, someone destroys living beings, kills them, takes what is not freely given, engages in sexual misconduct, speaks falsehood, slanders, uses harsh and vulgar words, talks frivolously, talks empty speech basically, useless, idle chatter, what you hear on TV, what you hear on the radio, That's all idle chatter. Politics, idle chatter, waste, waste, waste. Someone covets, wants what the other person has. Someone lives with an angry mind and holds on tightly to wrong views, miccāditthi. Once the physical body eventually breaks down, after death, such a person is reborn in hell. Basically, he just listed, not just the 5 precepts being broken, basically. So you had the 4 aspects of the wrong speech included there, as well as the person has coveting, longing. They also have dosa in their hearts, anger, hatred. So when such a person dies, they're not going to open their eyes in a heavenly realm, or even as a human, because they were living in a lower space, lower level of consciousness most of the time. That's what's going to take you to the place that is equivalent to that state. So don't expect a miracle there. So, once they're born there, they subsist by eating whatever food is available for hell beings. This is considered to be a wrong condition, where the merits that were gained from those offerings cannot be partaken of and thus be of no benefit to them. So people or beings who are born in hell realms cannot, that's what Lord Buddha is saying, share in the merits. Even if you are thinking of them, they're not going to be tasting any of it because they're in hell. That's what Lord Buddha is saying. It's like, think of it as a radio station. You are a broadcast station. You're broadcasting a signal. And someone has a radio, but the radio doesn't work. Will they get any signals? Sorry. It might just be a box with a word on it that says radio, but it's an empty box. It's not going to be picking up any signals. Don't forget, the hell realms are full of non-stop suffering. That's why it's called hell. It's a miserable place. It's beyond miserable. But he doesn't stop there. Further, Brahmin, someone destroys living beings, takes what is not freely given, engages in sexual misconduct, speaks falsehood, slanders, uses harsh and vulgar words, talks frivolously, idle chatter, empty talk, covets, lives with an angry mind, and holds on tightly to wrong views. Once the physical body eventually breaks down, after death, such a person is reborn in the animal realm. They subsist by eating whatever food is available for that particular animal in that realm. Because you can't expect all animals to be eating the same thing, right? A mosquito cannot eat what a gazelle eats. The mosquito looks at you and sees the gazelle. So this too is considered to be a wrong condition. A wrong condition because the merits gained cannot be shared with these beings, and thus be of no benefit to them. But Lord Buddha doesn't stop there. Further, Brahmin, someone abstains from destroying living beings, abstains from taking what is not freely given. Basically, they don't do abstaining, shunning, pushing themselves away. I'm not going to be breaking any precepts. That's the person. Abstains from engaging in sexual misconduct, abstains from speaking falsehood, from slandering, or using harsh and vulgar words. Basically, this is saying the person is keeping the 5 precepts. Because there's no way that you can be reborn as a human being if at least once you did not uphold this. Meaning you must have kept the 5 precepts intact at least for one lifetime in order for you to have the necessary merits to be reborn as a human being. It's so rare, even though we have 8 billion of us. and more on the way. But these beings have actually kept the 5 precepts. That's what he's saying. And while living with a loving kind and a kind mind and adhering to right view, once the physical body eventually breaks down after death, such a person is reborn in the human realm. They subsist by eating whatever food is available for humans in that realm. This too is considered to be a wrong condition. Now, a wrong condition, not that being born as a human is wrong. No. Remember the primary question that Janussoni asked. Who gets our merits? Because sometimes I'm asked, and I used to think about this myself, who, like, I'm making these offerings to the Triple Gem, and then I say, may my loved ones share this, for example. May my ancestors share this. Okay, that's nice, that's lovely, it's a good emotion, it makes you feel good. Okay, but how realistic is that? Is it? What if my ancestors have been born and they're somewhere in Scandinavia? Human beings, little children running on hills, like Sound of Music type of a thing. How in the world can they get any of my merits that I'm trying to share with them? Is it possible? When these questions come up, we usually push them aside. Let the philosophers deal with that. I just want to feel that good feeling inside. Okay, next. But we didn't answer any questions. I mean, it's never resolved. So here Lord Buddha is answering it. He's saying even being reborn as a human, it's not a good condition to be absorbing, receiving the merits that you're offering. So this is obviously raising some questions, isn't it? Further, Brahmin, someone abstains from destroying living beings, abstains from taking what is not freely given, so basically they don't break the precepts again, or using harsh words, they do not talk frivolously, do not covet, while living with a loving and kind mind, and adhering, holding on to right view. Once the physical body eventually breaks down after death, such a person is reborn in the company of the devas, or divine beings, in the heavenly realms. Not a bad place to be. They subsist by eating whatever food is available for that particular level of devas in that heavenly realm. And yes, most devas have their own types of food. Some have the food in the form of what we would call powder. And they gently rub it on their skin, and that's their food. And that can subsist them, that can give them sustenance for a long time. Some are with light, some are with fragrances. That's what they subsist on. And so they're reborn in that particular realm, heavenly realm, and in that realm, they get that particular type of food. But, he says, this too is considered a wrong condition to receive merits, where the merits that were gained from those offerings cannot be partaken. Still another person, Brahmin, destroys living beings, takes what is not freely given, engages in sexual misconduct. So now this person, whoever it is breaking precepts, speaks falsehood, lies, slanders, uses harsh and vulgar words, talks frivolously, covets, greedy, lives with an angry mind and holds on tightly to wrong views. Very arrogant. My way or the highway type of a thing. Once the physical body eventually breaks down, after death, such a person is reborn in the realm of hungry ghosts, spirits. They subsist by eating whatever food is available for hungry ghosts in that realm. This is considered to be the right condition, where the merits that were gained from those offerings can be partaken of and thus be of benefit to them. Interesting. So from all those realms we have isolated, we have found out which realm it is where we have the most accepting beings of our merits. So now you have an idea. This is coming straight from Lord Buddha's mouth. But, this is Janussoni saying, but, good Gautama, who then partakes of the merits gained by that offering if one's relatives or loved ones are not born in the realm of hungry ghosts, and thus benefit from them? What if they're not reborn there? What if your relatives died and ended up as camels in the Sahara? Or in the Brahma realms? They don't get any of it? Not even a little bit? Dividends? Anything? Nothing? No interest? Brahmin, this is Lord Buddha's response. There are those who are the relatives and loved ones of other people, born into the realm of hungry ghosts, that will partake of the merits gained by those offerings and thus benefit from them. So preferential treatment doesn't work much here, because this is Lord Buddha's way of saying that caring, compassion, metta or loving kindness does not recognize DNA. It doesn't care. And that's how it is. When you have metta in your heart, it really doesn't care. Your heart doesn't care what skin color the person has in front of you who's receiving your kindness, how old they are, what their political views are, how are they viewed by your ancestors, enemies, friends, or foes. You feel Brahma Viharas, it does not recognize any separation. It's life, it's like rain. When rain starts falling or when the sunlight hits, it doesn't say, I'm going to fall on you, tree, not those ones, I'm not going to. It falls on everything. Every single leaf gets a taste of the rain. But metta is even more pervasive, it's more spreading, radiating. But similarly, Lord Buddha is saying, you need to have an open approach to this, because your ancestors might not be petas, might not be ghosts, but others' parents are, and they will benefit from that. So he's teaching him about dana even in that type of a situation, in the offering of it. That's why the 31 layers of existence can always be on the receiving end of our compassion. So be generous with it. Not just when you're making an offering. That's why I say to students, be smiling all the time. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Even a cat will recognize your smile. A cat that has about 90 million neurons. A dog has about 275 million. And we have about 100 billion. But we are the worst towards each other, aren't we? That's why we need to be smiling more to each other. Right? So, by the way, here we see a huge contrast from what you heard me say about the Shraddha tradition in the Brahmanic tradition, right? The ritual, where not only is it a descendant has to make sure that the merits are transferred, but it has to be a male descendant. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It's like not putting the right Wi-Fi code. You don't have the right password, forget it. Sorry, you don't get online, you don't get to see, YouTube or whatever. It's not like that. The universe is a lot more open, available. So you see here a huge contrast between the Brahmanic tradition of sharing merits, which is extremely selective, and Lord Buddha's way of describing it, how it is. towards sharing merits towards your relatives, and you know, it changes, it's expanding, it destroys our concepts of boundaries of what is a family. Because now you no longer are just sticking to your own DNA type of family, you're open to everyone. Everyone. And everyone else's ancestors. Wow, you have access to other people's ancestors, and they have access to your merits that you are sharing. Wow. Look at the possibilities all of a sudden. After all, I mean, even a tombstone, something, you know, inscribed, somebody lived and died in the cemetery, you know, they have their name, born on this day, and died on this day, in different year. But if you go sometime later, maybe a few decades later, you see the tombstone older, eroded, weathered, if it's rock, or if it's made out of mud, you can't even read. One time in England, in the UK, I went to a cemetery, old Quaker cemetery, and it's been there for hundreds of years. And you see, it is just a slab of rock. And you see some writings there, but you can't read it. It's all scraped away, and probably no one has a record of it. Now, probably the people who are the descendants of those people, if they ever had descendants, they probably have moved away, completely forgotten about that particular ancestor that lived in the 1600s, let's say. Now, who's going to make any offerings for them? They're completely forgotten. So that's why our understanding, according to this Dhamma and discipline, of what it is, how it is that we can make offerings, can really benefit these beings, because these beings who are in the hell realm, or I'm sorry, the hungry ghost realm, they're really in need of our merits. But they cannot share in it unless we willingly share it with them, dedicate it with them, even though we never known them, we think. Because no one remembers them. That is misery. Hungry. Completely and utterly forgotten. It's terrible, emotionally. And you have to live a long time. They don't just live and die in 100 years, you know. Some of them live for thousands of years, our years, roaming around hungry, and they have to carry their miserable, ghostly bodies, holding on to their memories, holding on to their grief, their greed. That's what got them in the first place, into that realm. Their lack of sila got them there. Not wanting to share got them there. Holding on to wrong views got them there. So even now, if something touches you as you're hearing the Dhamma, you can make a wish in your heart. You can close your eyes if you want to, but you can just make a wish that whatever merits are to be gained by you from listening to the Dhamma, because you're making a lot of merits just listening, properly listening. You can share that joy with the Petas. Yes. And this is Janussoni's response. But good Gautama, if neither one's own relatives or loved ones, nor those of others are reborn into the realm of hungry ghosts, then who partakes of the merits gained by those offerings and thus benefit from them? You know, you might have gone to some cities, probably in Malaysia too, in some districts, you have some buildings that are completely empty because they're uninhabitable after some time. Houses in shambles and things, no one lives in them. But there was a time where people lived. So, Janussoni is asking a question that comes from that same logic. He's saying, but what if the Preta realms, the hungry ghost realm itself, gets emptied out one day? Nobody's there. So who's going to benefit? This is interesting, what Lord Buddha is going to say. Brahmin, throughout the endless stretch of time in samsara, it is impossible that the realm of hungry ghosts could ever get empty of the relatives and loved ones of beings, any beings, relatives. However, Brahmin, the offering that is made, it is never fruitless for the one who gives. The one who gives. Last month, there was a Dana ceremony and they asked me to join, and I said, okay, so I was there, and they asked me to give a brief talk. So I shared some Dhamma, and I recalled a discourse, a sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya, from the Book of Fours, where Lord Buddha is talking about the types of dana, types of generosity. Lord Buddha was such an incredible, perfect teacher, I would say. And he gives very simple, I mean, you can take this with you anywhere you go. It's so simple. You'll always remember this, I think. In regards to dana, generosity, he says there's 4 kinds. The one kind is when the person who's offering it is the one who gets the benefit of it, but not the receiver. How is that possible? Well, the person who's making the offering is offering it with such a heart full of joy. So you're offering the dana with joy. So the giver is full of joy and love and happiness. It might be something very ornate, very elaborate, very expensive, or it could be something very simple, very inexpensive. But you're offering it in such a way where it's like, wow, I'm giving this, I'm making this offering. I can't believe it. And he accepts it or she accepts it. Ah, yes. That's the first kind, Lord Buddha says, where the receiver gets all, the giver gets all of the merits of the offering. The second type is where the giver is giving with resentment, doesn't want to give. They have greed, perhaps. They have anger, maybe. Nah, you don't deserve this, but I'm going to give it to you. Take it, take it, take it. That is the giver not having the heart in the right place. But the receiver in this case is so joyful for receiving it. Ah, this is exactly what I need right now. Thank you. In their hearts, that's how they're saying it. As bhikkhus, we can't say that. In fact, we can't even say thank you. I come from a culture where if you don't say thank you, you're extremely rude. So I was taught to always say thank you. So sometimes I have to hold myself, because I had one teacher who would say, never say thank you. I said, why? Because that completes the transaction, in a sense, if you think of it in those terms. Because you give somebody something, and I gave you my thank you, and that's it. Well, no, I want to keep the door open for great, great, great possibilities for the giver that can take them for many, many lifetimes of gifts coming back to them for making an offering to the Sangha. But if I say thank you, that ends the transaction. That was one interpretation. My interpretation is a little bit wider. I like to say thank you too. I like to say thank you with my smile, with my nod, even with the words thank you. I think people appreciate that, and that's okay. And I will leave the door open for more possibilities in the future, so it doesn't end any transaction for anybody. So, the receiver is joyful, but the giver is not in the second example of dana. So the receiver gets all of the merits. Now there's a third kind, Lord Buddha says, of dana, where neither the giver nor the receiver are happy. The giver is like, and the receiver is like, what is it? Really? This is what I deserve? I came to your home blessing for this? Huh? There are some people who think like that. People are people. It ends right there. Nobody gets any of the outcome of that offer. It dies, Lord Buddha says. It dies right there on the spot. And then there's the fourth kind. Both the giver and the receiver are extremely joyful. And that makes it almost an unending source of returns. Happiness, joy, material, whatever you want to call it. So those four are good to bear in mind. Whenever you're making an offering, even if you're making an offering for someone else, someone gives you some money, says, please do this. Don't just be a go-between. Don't be like a FedEx, UPS, or DHL driver. Here we go, okay. And no, you can join into the process. There's so much joy to be made. So much. And Janussoni continues. So it's never fruitless, Lord Buddha says. And does the good Gautama declare that this is the case even if the conditions are wrong? Earlier he was saying the conditions are wrong, like a person is born as a dog or an animal, condition is wrong, right? They can't receive the merits. But here is where Lord Buddha is going to be putting in the role of virtue or sila, living with sila and how it impacts a person's life. Even the next one, and the next one. Indeed, Brahmin, I declare that this is the case, even if the conditions are wrong. And for what reason? Lord Buddha never gave a brief answer, like just like yes or no, and walked away. Usually he would give you why. He would elaborate. He was fearless, he was courageous. He would stand his ground and explain to you why he says this. So he didn't leave anything for speculation. Consider someone who destroys living beings, takes what is not freely given, engages in sexual misconduct, speaks falsehood, slanders, uses harsh and vulgar words, talks frivolously, covets, lives with an angry mind, and holds on tightly to wrong views. But, while still alive, he offers food, drinks, clothes, transportation, garlands, scents, fragrances, ointments, beds, dwellings, and lighting utensils to recluses and dedicated religious practitioners. Despite the fact that they broke precepts, they said, okay, I'll make dana. You hear this, like in rich people who control so many corporations in the world are responsible, really, behind the devastation of the environment, not us. It's the big corporations who do that, but we get the blame for it. But every so often they go ahead and make a big donation to something, the United Nations or something, and they give like $1 million or $100 million. But you look at their lives, or famous people, rock stars or actors, they live many of them, lives without sila. Sleep around, cheating, drugs, this, that. But every so often, they make a big donation. So now we're seeing what's going to happen here. Once the physical body eventually breaks down, after death, such a person is reborn as an elephant, in the company of elephants. There he gains food, drinks, and various decorative garlands. If you go to Sri Lanka, different times of the year, if they, especially, let's say, major Temple of the Tooth in Kandy, if you've seen the elephants, they decorate the elephants, you would think it's the king. Beautifully decked, they sometimes put lights on them, and I'm just like, wow. Now, of course, the elephant feels he's being treated in a different way than his cousin over there, who's not painted on anything, but here they decorated him, and it's like roses and this and that, garlands. Sometimes I would shake my head in the US and Europe. Sometimes people you see who are so rich and they die and they leave everything to their cat. Money to the cat, to the dog. Money. Castles. How's the dog going to... But they treat the cat, they feed the cat with the best food, better than any human can eat. Shower the cat with rose water, I don't know. So that cat is definitely going to be treated better than a cat in the middle of Calcutta who cannot find food. So there is a difference. So next one is, now Brahman, because while being alive, he engaged in destroying living beings, taking what is not freely given, engaging in sexual misconduct. But since he made offerings of food, drinks, clothes, transportation, garlands, scents, ointments, beds, dwellings, and lighting utensils to recluses and dedicated religious practitioners, there in that realm he gains food, drinks, and various decorative garlands. So that is the reason. Because sometimes we see, one time in Sri Lanka, every time I would leave this house, there was a dog that would come. And you look at the dog and it looked so much in pain. It was sad. You can even smell the dog, not because it was dirty, but because it had this big patch of open wound on its side. It had a skin condition. It was chewing part of its own body because it itched, it scratched, it wanted to scratch, so it was biting into its own skin. So it was eating itself alive. So you would see a portion of the body open, skinning, but it was suffering from so much pain. All that gives you an idea. And then you look at another dog, and a woman is carrying a poodle, caressing the poodle, giving it, nice food. This part of you is going to normally ask the question, like, why? What is the discrepancy? Of course, generally, limited-minded people will think and attribute the reason for that to some higher person, higher being, God or something. Oh, God willed it or something. This has nothing to do with such a thing. And Lord Buddha is explaining as to why. Because the actions don't just disappear. The effects of actions, like a pebble you throw in the middle of a lake, the ripples are created. That is intentional action. That is what Lord Buddha calls kamma. It has an intention behind it, and the intention is going to be carried all the way to you. Maybe not in this life, but definitely in future lives. And here we see examples. Further, Brahman considers someone else who destroys living beings, takes what is not freely given, engages in sexual misconduct, etc., but while still alive he offers food, drinks, clothes, transportation, garlands. Remember, transportation, in those days they didn't have public transportation. So and many people would sometimes get sick and they didn't have proper roads, so somebody might have a cart or an ox-driven carriage or a horse or something. Or they themselves would carry the person to their destination, especially if the person had a broken leg, old. So they would carry the person to their destination. That is offering someone transportation. Especially in India didn't change, the distances are still the same. People still had to walk. What if you have broken legs? And in India, if you're going to be on the pilgrimage, sometimes you will see people who you never get to see. in a modern society as far as deformed bodies. Even in Sri Lanka, I once saw a person who was pushing or pulling himself on the road, and there were cars going in both directions. He was crossing the road as he was dragging himself, and part of his foot was deformed. It's not a normal foot, and you definitely cannot move the foot. Dorsiflexion, plantar flexion doesn't exist. So the foot is frozen like that, or the knee. So you might have seen them in books or in videos, but you will see this more vividly in India. So people need transportation, similarly with lighting utensils, which means that oil lamps, and which cost money. Not every house had light at night. Even oil lamps came at a price. So making those offerings also is dana. So once the physical body eventually breaks down, after death, such a person is reborn as a horse in the company of horses. There he gains food, drinks, and various decorative garments. Now Brahmin, because while being alive he engaged in destroying living beings, taking what is not freely given, engaging in sexual misconduct, etc., etc., he is reborn as a horse in the company of horses. But since he made offerings of food, drinks, clothes, transportation, etc., there in that realm he gains food, drinks, and various decorative garments as a horse. Again, just like in the case of human beings, in the case of animals, or dogs, etc., horses too, there was a law some time ago passed in some states in the US, in America, where it was allowed, permits were given for people to go ahead and shoot wild horses. So if you happen to be a horse, living in the wild, in your own native, biome, environment, suddenly, even though you have all this freedom and you have plenty of food, grass is growing everywhere, suddenly someone would come and shoot you or shoot your child. So we have to think of many, many of the variables that we don't consider when we look and see, let's say, a horse. We have to look at all of the factors as best as we can. How is this animal getting its food? Why is this animal getting different kind of food than the other type of same animal, same species? Why is one sick? Why is not? Same thing with us, humans. So this is talking about the effects of karma also. It's not just about who gets the merits, if you notice. And also the role of virtue, sila. Now, of course, it's better than ending up in the hell realms. You can see a horse, right? You can see a cat. You can't see a hell realm dweller or a ghost. But definitely the horse is going to be in a better state than somebody who's in the hell realms constantly tortured. Constantly. So there's a better situation. So the dana does go somewhere. But the virtue is the thing which is reminding us also in the sutta to pay attention to. So don't just count on your $1 million check, Mr. Bezos, or someone like that. You have to think about what my actions are doing. How am I treating my employees? Do I have compassion for them? Do I give them enough time to eat? Yes. Not to make the Dhamma talk about politics, I don't ever do that, want that. But people suffer in these big corporations because their owners, the CEOs of these companies, lack the humanity to consider how much time does this employee have to eat when all they're doing is working. Do they even have 5 minutes to just go, well, where's that going to go? The effect of that action that I have brought upon this other being. I've created suffering for someone else. That is not going to go to the employee, it's going to come back to me, the employer. Even if I'm paying a good amount of money, let's say, to some foundation. So sila goes hand in hand with your generosity. So you see how many targets are being addressed in this sutta. It's not just who's getting what merit. There's depth to it, there's multi-layers. So I encourage you to look at this. And I encourage you also to watch the recording once Brother Leslie and Brother Jason put it on the web to see, or even read the sutta yourself. So we had the horse, we had the elephant first. So same thing happens at the beginning. So the person is breaking the 5 precepts, but while still alive, he offers food, drinks, clothes, transportation, garments, etc. To religious practitioners and recluses. Once the physical body eventually breaks down, after death, such a person is reborn as a cow in the company of cattle. There he gains food, drinks, and various decorative garments. Again, cows come in all different types of environmental spectra. If you are born in... Yes, Brother Leslie.
Sorry to interrupt, but I kind of missed you just now. What was the difference between the cow, the elephant, horse, and cow? What was the differentiation?
Oh, it's just Lord Buddha does not make any differentiation as to the criteria, plural, of the elements that is distinguishing one to be one reborn as a cow, the other as a horse, the other as an elephant. He would be the perfect one to actually address that question too. Because Lord Buddha, he was the only one he's explained that in different suttas, that the different nuances and causes of factors that bring about this type of an appearance in a person's birth can only be known, causes and conditions basically, can only be known by a person of Buddha level of understanding and depth of knowledge and wisdom. But as far as what I can provide for you in an answer as an attempt, there are, I would look at it in the form of a scientist as to what capacities can be seen by one animal, from one animal to the next. How much of a freedom can be shown by one animal versus the other, which can tell us about the type of lifestyle they must have led previous to that birth. What it doesn't talk about in the sutta is sometimes you hear in living examples in the news sometimes, where you hear a dolphin saved a drowning person. Well, that is a very, very noble act, which requires intention, even on the part of the dolphin. You have examples of dogs who jump in front of a threatening animal to save another person's life. Cat, I've seen a video once of a cat jumping at a wild dog who just attacked a child, a human child. And the cat recognizes what's happening. It quickly goes in and bites or scratches the ear of this wild dog. And the dog leaves the baby and rushes away. That is a noble action. So of course, these actions bear an impact upon the entity to be, even though they are four-legged now. A lovely example of this is the elephant the elephant and the monkey who offered food, and they provided the requisites to Lord Buddha when he was living in doing a secluded retreat for his reigns. When the monks at Kosambi, remember last week we talked about Chula Gosinga and Kosambi argument? He went into the forest to do the rains retreat, the Vassa, all on his own. The elephant and the monkey were the only dayakas. They were the only providers, supporters of Lord Buddha. And when Ananda came with the 500 bhikkhus to ask for for the Lord Buddha's forgiveness, the monks did, and Lord Buddha says yes, and he's about to go, he turns and he thanked with a smile the elephant and the monkey. And as Lord Buddha walked away, the elephant has a heart attack and drops dead. And he immediately is born as a deva in the Tavatin Sahib, in the 33, realm of the 33 gods, as one of the gods. So, you see, there was just a jump over the human realm, from the elephant, boom, all the way, not just any realm, but all the way to the level of the 33 gods. So, some people say, oh, these are just stories, but they're not, no. If you spend some time with them, spend some time with the Dhamma practice, you see the truth in these. So, I hope I'm able to answer your question to the best of my abilities, but there are other suttas which I fail to remember now. I know commentaries might have more material to address that as to what distinguishes. But obviously you look at the capacity of the animal currently, if it's a cow or it's a snake, the snake will not have that relatability as much. Right? But a snake or even a crocodile, even though it's called a cold-blooded animal, reptilian, could not attack a person willingly. Now, the devas might be involved or not, but in that sense, you know, there was one video I've seen years ago of a baby in India. You have these outdoor beds that they put outside because they don't have air conditioning. So in many places, in the villages, as by the roadside, you see these beds made out of straw, and there was this child sleeping, an infant, a newborn baby, and on four sides, four corners of the bed, there were cobras. This was not edited, this was real video. So 4 cobras were protecting the child. This is a video, you can check it out on YouTube, I'm sure it's there. They were not attacking the baby. The baby was playing with one of them, it's like reached over, it's an infant, completely not cognizant of what it's doing. Reached over, and I think at one point it grabs hold of the cobra, and the cobra doesn't attack. 4 at each corner of the bedpost. So, even as an animal, you can demonstrate some sila and some compassion and even empathy. A honeybee will sacrifice its own life for the colony. If it knows that it's being attacked, if the colony is being attacked by wasps or others, it will sacrifice its own life to protect it. That guarantees that that honeybee will not be a honeybee in its next birth. So we have to address, we have to look beyond what you know, our instincts tell us often. So I don't know, I think, is that satisfactory for now? Good. So, and so we have the cow here, and then there's the dog here. So there's the other example that Lord Buddha gives. But while still alive, he offers food, drinks. So after breaking precepts, he still is offering food, as a human being, that is. So even though they break precepts, but they offer food. So again, like those movie stars you see who do all kinds of things, or wealthy people, or politicians, they're number one, who break precepts left and right, and then they do maybe something good here and there. They donate, or they donate their time. You know, in America there's a Thanksgiving, you know, which comes around so once a year, and you see these people who were breaking the precepts left and right throughout the year. That day they decide to go ahead and do the soup kitchen, which means they serve soup for people, the poor or whatever, who comes and they offer soup. So that's nice, that's lovely. I hope they're doing it with good intention, but that's going to get them some good merits. They might be four-legged next time instead of living in hell. Still, it's better. So, and here Lord Buddha says, once the physical body eventually breaks down for such beings, after death, such a person is reborn as a dog. So, and then there's the other example, so he says, because he has made offerings of food, etc., there in that realm he gains food, drinks, and various decorative garlands. Further, Brahmin considers someone who else who abstains from harming or killing living beings, does not take what is not freely given, does not engage in sexual misconduct, refuses to speak falsehood, neither slanders nor uses harsh or vulgar words, does not talk frivolously, does not covet, lives with a loving and kind mind, adhering to right view. And while still alive, he offers food, drinks, clothes, transportation, garlands, scents, ointments, beds, dwellings, and lighting utensils to recluses and dedicated religious practitioners. Once the physical body eventually breaks down after death, such a person is reborn as a human being in the human realm. Not bad. There he gains the 5 objects of human sensual pleasure. You have the potential to experience those 5 sense pleasures. Again, that also has its own, obviously, requirements, because not every human has those 5, as you know. Some of us might have certain disabilities, all those, which also indicate the presence of actions, karma, in the past. So, so because he says he followed the 5 precepts, and since he made offerings of food, drinks, clothes, transportation, etc., there in that human realm he gains the 5 objects of human sense pleasure. Further, Brahmin considers someone else who also obtains from harming and killing beings and keeping the 5 precepts, and while still alive he offers food, drinks, clothes, transportation, garlands, scents, etc. Once the physical body eventually breaks down after death, such a person is reborn as a divine being in the company of devas. There he gains the 5 objects of heavenly sensual pleasure. Now, Brahmin, because while being alive he abstained from harming or killing beings and basically kept all the 5 precepts and made offerings, there in that heavenly realm as a deva he then gains the 5 objects of heavenly sensual pleasure. So, in addition to dana, Lord Buddha also gave us the importance of sila, living with virtue. So what he's trying to tell us is, please don't satisfy yourself by simply doing the dana portion. In fact, you keeping the sila is far more important than giving that red packet, that envelope. It might be just you doing some physical service. What if you can do both? Even better. That's what this sutta is saying. Don't forget the virtue, Lord Buddha is saying. They work hand in hand. So think of a bird. The easiest way I can explain it, think of a bird. It needs both wings to fly. Giving the dana is like one wing. Is it better than no wings? Yeah, but it's going to be funny flying. You know, it's going to be really hard for the bird to fly. But the bird is supposed to have 2 wings to fly and glide beautifully. That is living with both dana and sila. Because those are the ones that are going to get you to a rebirth where you can enjoy the 5 sense pleasures. But if you are paying attention to this Dhamma, you know that Lord Buddha did not satisfy. He didn't get satisfied with just having people practicing dana and sila. Remember, this is not a sila path. This is sila samadhi panya path. Because with dana and sila, you're still stuck in the sankhara realm, in the realm of the conditions. Because the day will come where you as a deva will be no more. You as a human being will be no more. The Queen of England, people like that. Rich, incredibly rich people. Okay, they're enjoying yesterday's fare, yesterday's food. The actions, the good actions they've committed in the past. That's what they've been enjoying for 90 years or so. I always feel sad about those people who don't make the most of this life and the power they have now. What did you do now about tomorrow's birth? You're using up your account, your savings account, and it's running out. The moment you breathe your last breath, bye-bye. You might open up your eyes in a ghost realm. And it's going to take a long time because you're going to have to pay for whatever you've done now as a queen. Plain and simple. Meanwhile, you could have done miracles in people's lives and gained yourself a bigger and better rebirth in the future. So, so we need to break away from samsara. That's what the Dhamma is trying to tell us. And for that we have the path of practice, which earlier I was mentioning about the Noble Eightfold Path. That is the path of practice. The Eightfold Path. When Venerable Ananda and others were there at the last moment before Lord Buddha died, he turned to the listeners, Lord Buddha, and said, so long as there is the Noble Eightfold Path still available, so long as there are teachers who are teaching the Noble Eightfold Path, and so long as there are practitioners who are practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, the world will never be short of arahants. I don't care if it's year 3064. If there is Noble Eightfold Path, Attangika Magga, if there are people who are practicing it, you will have arahats in that year as well. So it doesn't matter. That's what we need to keep. And dana and sila are part of those, yes. But dana and sila are not everything, as you discover. So it's only coming through the practice of sila, which is virtue, samadhi, which is mental cultivation, and panya, which is discernment, wisdom, developing of wisdom. So I've had people who say, well, Bhante, I give donations. I've been donating money, I've been donating this. It's like, my father built this monastery or this temple, this vihara. Okay. Don't expect to get any extra freebies, any extra coupons, any extra credit for any of that. Ultimately, it is your practice, mental practice. Don't expect there to be nibbana because of your dana. Okay? Mental cultivation has to be there. Samadhi has to be there. There's no way ifs and buts about that. It was because of this, Brahmin, that I declared how the offering that is made, it is never fruitless for the one who gives, even if the conditions are wrong. When this was said, Janussoni, the Brahmin, exclaimed to the Blessed One, it is amazing, good Gautama, it is astounding, Blessed One, how the explanation you gave justifies the offering of gifts and performing of the memorial rites for our dead relatives and loved ones, as it brings, at the very least, so many benefits to the ones who give. It is excellent, Blessed One, it is marvelous, Blessed One, The Blessed Lord has clarified the Dhamma for me in many ways, as though he were to turn upright what had been turned upside down. And that's a term you see many, many times. When a person comes, and in the suttas you see this, when a person comes asking Lord Buddha a question that was bugging them for such a long time, and Lord Buddha clarifies it, and they say these words, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see. Bhante, I go to the Blessed One for refuge, and to the Dhamma and to the Sangha of bhikkhus. He's become an upasaka. He's become a Buddhist. When the person says that to Lord Buddha. From this day forward, may the Blessed One remember me as a lay disciple who has taken refuge in him until the end of life. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We dedicate merits. We cannot transfer them. So, next time you hear that term or you use it, think about it. We can only dedicate. We cannot transfer. What do you think about it? When you go to the bank, can you transfer money you don't have to someone else? If you don't have it, how can you transfer it? Merits are the same. You can dedicate it. You can dedicate it to someone else. The action, which adds more of a depth to the action itself when you're making an offering. And it opens your heart, because you cannot make the most of an offering with your heart closed. Remember those 4 examples of dana? The first, make sure you are that first. Make sure you're whatever it is you're offering, you're giving it with your whole heart. And by the way, you can also make dana to yourself. How is that possible? One might ask. Every time you sit and dedicate some time to yourself to sit and meditate, to take off your shoes, your socks, and walk on the grass, and say, I'm going to give myself these 5 minutes, thank you very much. Turn off your phone, put it somewhere, and say, I'm going to listen to my heart. I'm just going to say, it's okay. Breathe with sati. Breathe metta. Guess what? You're giving dana to yourself. Isn't that lovely? Every time you smile to yourself, you're actually giving a lot of dana. In that case, you and the receiver are very joyful, because you are the receiver too. How much fun is that? And that adds another depth to sanditthiko. One of the qualities of the Dhamma, Lord Buddha says, directly visible. The Dhamma is directly visible. You don't have to go to some other country or some far distant kuti in some jungle somewhere to meet this arahant so that they can reveal to you the Dhamma, so you can go, ah yes, I can see the Dhamma. No, you don't even have to get on an airplane. You can taste the Dhamma right now. We don't have to complicate things. We are human beings, and the more things we know, we make more complicated things. Remember the centipede? Did I tell you the example of the centipede in the past? Some of you might. Okay, I mentioned it at Bhante Dhammavuto's monastery, that's why. I'll say it quickly here. There's we complicate things. The more you know, that's why I say it's easier for me to teach someone who has not studied the Dhamma much or hasn't practiced. Because they have a clean slate. When someone has done so many different techniques and comes and says, Bhante, can you help me? I just go, oh boy. Because I have to undo all the nonsense. because they're trying to prove to me, I know something. One day there was a cockroach sitting there enjoying the sun after a lunch, so it was in a siesta mode. And there was the cockroach is enjoying itself, and it sees, maybe using a toothpick, cleaning up its teeth, and it sees the centipede come by. Centipede is an insect which has approximately 100 legs. And the centipede is minding its own business and walking, and the cockroach sees this and he says, whoa. He says, wait, my friend, hey, hold on. He says, so the centipede stops and says, how do you do this? And the centipede goes, what? He says, how do you walk like this? And he says, I'm walking, what are you talking about? He says, this is a cockroach, I have 6 legs. I struggle sometimes to know which leg I'm putting in front of the other. You, how are you doing this? How do you know how leg 87 is going to walk after leg 88? How do you do this? And the centipede goes, scratches its head and says, you know, I never thought of it. And it starts thinking. Unfortunately, that centipede never walked again. That's what we do with the Dhamma. It's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to open doors for us. We have to become lighter. We don't have to become so serious with the stuff that we know. Otherwise the head is so heavy and the neck cannot support it. The opposite of what we want. So, making offerings goes hand in hand with love. How much love are you giving inside your gift? How much love are you putting in? How much of you is in the gift? That's another way of looking. Are you doing this for others? Are you doing this for others to see? Or is this for you? Is it done in secret? So, we must match the action that we are performing. We must match it with what we are feeling inside. That's why I teach metta more than any other technique, because it is a feeling technique, because we are all feeling beings. And now, especially now, we need to reconnect with ourselves. Most of us don't know how to give love to ourselves. And there will not be any development in Dhamma unless there is development in love for you, from you. Otherwise, we're just trying to grab. I want to grab this jhana, I want to grab this, level of attainment. Grab. We are bringing that performing, producing, capitalistic way of thinking into the Dhamma. Grab, I want this. Why are you going to Asia to practice 10 days or 3 months retreat? What are you going to get out of it? Are you going to get something out of it? I've met people in my travels through Asia when I would do retreats who came a long way. They said, I'm going to get to the first stage of awakening. I took a time off and I'm here for that. I was like, okay. So what is the difference between what you were doing over there in a Fortune 500 company in the middle of Amsterdam and now here? You're bringing that way of thinking, of grabbing, wanting into the Dhamma. That's the surest way that nothing's going to work for you. You're in fact going to be very disappointed and very angry when you get home. So we can't, our action must match where we are. When we are doing dana. And if it doesn't, we need to take a closer look and do something about that. And another, on a trivial note, regarding rituals, sometimes, because of tradition, we look at the ritual, we think of blessings, blessings, blessings. And we are waiting for someone to bless in a certain way. And if they do it in a different way, we might think something is off. Why is that? Oftentimes, Lord Buddha would touch something, and that would be blessed, the action. When Lady Sujata gave that golden bowl full of milk rice to Lord Buddha, actually he wasn't the Buddha then, but he was about to, he needed the energy. She actually thought that he was a deva, sitting under that tree. But he accepted it, gently. He didn't offer any chanting, nothing. So we have to be very careful what it is that we are expecting to get from the bhikkhu when we make an offering. Maybe the words, we're expecting certain types of words. What if we don't hear those words? Does that mean that my offering is not going to be as efficacious, as productive, as practical, as with the same outcome that I want? So we need to check our own expectations when we are making an offering. But that does not give a permission to the receiving bhikkhu, in this case, to mistreat or belittle the offering. It's a very beautiful, sublime moment. So time and space stops at that moment when someone makes an offering. So when you make an offering as if you're making it to Lord Buddha himself. Can you do that? You break time and space. It doesn't exist for you anymore. Because in your heart you are there in the presence of Lord Buddha. Time doesn't exist. You have just changed laws of physics. That's how powerful metta is. And that has to be matching where you're coming from. Remember, it has to match the action. Where am I in my heart? How much metta is there when I'm making this offering? Is there self in there, or is this selfless? That's very important. And so don't undermine your thoughts, the power of your intention. I always say your power of intention is crucial. When you're making any offerings, please pay attention to that. And there's, well, rituals are okay, but we are the ones, people, not just people as in lay people versus bhikkhus, people, including bhikkhus, are responsible for many of the errors that are happening in the sasana today. Because many of us bhikkhus have ritualized the Dhamma. Ritualized. Turned everything into rituals. So we must be very careful. I realized this as a child growing up in a Christian Orthodox church, which is actually Apostolic church, which is the oldest. Goes straight, starts from two of the apostles of Jesus. So my grandparents and the whole Armenian tradition comes from that. So you look at tradition in that sense, and you look at rituals, everywhere rituals, for hours. So I was very eager to look for the substance beyond the symbolism of the incense, the chimes, the bells, the movements, the clothing, the attire, the this, the that. Where is the spiritual element? Where is the otherworldliness? Where is the substance? I would go and ask as a child, priests, Christian, monks, why? Why do you do this? And then later on, when I was 15, I walked into the monastery. I went into the monastery without my parents knowing. because I craved to understand, because there was no Buddhism there. That was the only thing there for me. So I would struggle for years trying to understand, and that's what I also see in the Dhamma today, for decades. Decades. Over 3 decades, in fact. I've been noticing how we have ritualized. So it doesn't matter if it's Christianity we're talking about or the Dhamma, Buddhism. You have in Thailand today people building wax models of their teachers, of their ajahns who have passed, and they are now bowing to that wax model of their teacher. Bowing. The teacher, by the way, is wearing robes now. It's not the teacher, it's Madame Tussauds type of a wax model. You know Madame Tussauds? You go to Paris and New York, Hollywood. What has this become then? How is this Dhamma? We've ritualized it to such ridiculous lengths, and no one's asking questions. Where does this fall in the Dhamma? How does the Buddha, if he would walk in right now and see me bowing down to this pile of wax and paint, what is the deal with all these statues? Another question. So much money is collected to build or to get statues for this shrine and that shrine and that shrine. We're not even supposed to have shrines, by the way. There was no shrine at the time of Lord Buddha's, wherever he would gather. That would become the shrine. Your faith, your practice would make it into a shrine. So somewhere along the lines, we as bhikkhus became priests. Somewhere the lines got crossed, we lost the message, and we became priests. A monk, a bhikkhu, is never a priest. A priest is the one who does funerals, weddings, blessings, blessings of cars, business, this, tables, new laptop. That's what a priest does. That's why it's called priestcraft. It's a profession. And the profession, how do you get paid? An envelope is given. When my mother died, being Christian in those days, in the early 90s, the priest came, and they would talk and they would say, so you know, they would even start maybe becoming emotional, talking to all these people gathered, and they would talk as if they knew my mother. They never knew her. After the ceremony, they would come and they would stand, and you know the drill. You know what you need to hand them, a white envelope full of cash. Okay? That was the profession. They will not ask you how much they're supposed to get paid, but you have an idea. They give you the hints. Bhikkhus are never that. But we have become that, and that is sad. That is not correct. We have ritualized the Dhamma. Not too long ago, I went somewhere with some students, a monastery, and the abbot was not there. And there was just a series of bowing to be done. Before you bow, before you eat, you have to bow. You have to do this. You have to turn and then bow to each other. And then you have to bow to this side. You have to bow to that side. I was like, when are we going to start to actually practice? When are we going to eat? Before the eating also, there's a series of bowing. Where is the mind? That's my question. That's the number one, the only important precept. The mind is number one. Lord Buddha left the priestcraft, the work that is to be done by priests, to the laity. When Venerable Ananda came to Lord Buddha saying, Bhante, what are we going to do with your body? We never talked about that. Who's going to do the cremation? And, forgive me for asking this, but what's going to happen with your relics? How should we divide this? And Lord Buddha looks at Ananda as like, what are you, stupid? Look. That is not what we're supposed to do, he says. You're a bhikkhu. Leave that to the laity, he says. Your job is to sit and meditate over there and become an arahant, finally. Instead of sitting there talking to me about how are we supposed to do the ceremony, the ritual. He officially declares, Lord Buddha himself, the king of the Dhamma, declares to us that the bhikkhu is not a priest. But that is what we have become exactly. People look at us and they expect us to do ceremonies, blessings, and you know, funerals and this and that. Don't get me wrong, these are important aspects of keeping a community together. But that is not the function of the bhikkhu. The function of the bhikkhu is, first and foremost, to awaken, to wake up, to become an arahant, at least become a sotapanna. Or at the very, very, very least, practice the sila portion of the training. That is the very basic requirement for a bhikkhu. And we have to become the embodiment of the three trainings, sila, samadhi, panya. Not do blessings. When people invite a bhikkhu somewhere, they're excited to see the bhikkhu dipping some flour in a bowl of water and to splash people with the flour, as if we're back in Christian times or something, you know. In Christianity, that's what they do a lot. And it's an old tradition I get in human history everywhere you see it, but that's not the function of the bhikkhu. Those are the bells and whistles, we say. Has nothing to do with the practice. So let us look back to what is the practice. And you, as a lay community, you have so much you can do. And yes, in this sutta we're encouraged to do dana and sila, but don't stop there. Practice the mind. Get the cultivation of the mind, develop discernment, panya. And maybe you might inspire some bhikkhus to actually become practitioners themselves. Because I know a lot of lay people who put many bhikkhus to shame in their own practice. And don't think that this is just happening now. Even at the time of Lord Buddha, many lay people put many monks to shame. So become a sotapanna, become a sakadagami, become an anagami as a layperson, and even become an arahant. But you won't stay an arahant as a layperson too long. You'll quickly don the robes. And I will say sadhu to that. I will stop here and ask for any questions. Yes.
In the Janussoni Sutta, I think it's obvious that sila is more important than dana. I think when you do not keep your precept, even though you do a lot of dana, at best you become elephant tigers or elephant cow, you know, like that. That's the best you can get. Okay, but the question is, how long should the precept be kept? Like Angulimala, even though I think he did not keep a precept initially.
Let me get the question again. Could you clarify? How long should the precept be kept?
Yeah, so Angulimala initially did not keep a precept. But
Initially what?
Angulimala, he did not keep precept initially, but then later on he kept his precept. The question is, for how long should one be keeping the precept before he got a chance to be reborn into a better realm?
From what I'm understanding, because it's not 100% clear, but you said Angulimala took the precepts and then took it back?
No. Then he became an arahant, even though he has killed many people previously.
Yes. Well, he was not taking the precepts prior, even though he was a kind person. He was ahinsaka, and but then his teacher actually misled him. But he was breaking the precepts, absolutely. But taking precepts is not a part-time affair. You don't have, let's say, I'll do this for this much time and then I'm just going to hang my hat over there, I'm done with the sila hat, so I'm stopping. you see the beauty of it. It's like you don't breathe for 2 minutes in the morning and say, I'm good for today. It's more essential than breathing for the person who keeps precepts, because you realize the beauty of keeping the precepts and how much protection it's providing you, your loved ones, and total strangers. In fact, it is expanding your worldview, because remember, sila doesn't stay as sila if you're practicing the path well, if you're coming to Dhamma talks or you're listening to the Dhamma talks. What happens is the sila opens up into samadhi. And now you are getting the best of two worlds, which lead you to panya. So no way in the middle of the path you're going to say, okay, I'm good here. I'm done with the sila part. I'm okay. Let's move to the next thing. No, it's not like that. So there is a wrong view there. If we think that sila is temporary, or taking precepts is temporary. Now, having said this, as lay people, sometimes you go to retreats and you take the 8 precepts. That is temporary. Before you leave the retreat, the bhikkhu has to allow you, to give you the 5 precepts. So now you take 5 precepts, because as 8 preceptor, there's no sex. You stop eating at lunch. Well, you're a layperson, you don't have to live like that. Or wearing, I don't know, or dancing and things like that, you know. So these things that lay people get involved in, that portion of taking precepts can become or seen as temporary, yes. But you don't need to have the 8 precepts lifelong in order for you to attain Sotapatti, for example. 5 precepts is plenty enough. You can become an arahant with 5 precepts.
Even though you did not keep precept previously, now you start to keep precept.
Oh, previously.
Yeah. So, you know, but for how long? Before you die, I think you did not keep precept.
I see. Now I see. It doesn't matter how long. You might only have one single breath left. But you take that breath with full sila, with full awareness. Here at the Buddhist Maha Vihara, we, the administration, the front desk especially, gets a lot of phone calls and people approaching at times where they're really at difficult times in their lives, miserable. They have a loved one dying or sick or something like that. And for that, I was requested to basically prepare some type of a resource. And this week, this week I think, I prepared a couple of videos where I address how important it is for us to approach, especially a person who has reached that end of the life, they're in the ICU or something. You know they're going. It's so important for us to infuse that last moment of their life with happy, joyful, uplifted feeling. Don't talk about anything negative. Talk about the sila. 5, be sila. Remind them of how great they are. If you know that they have kept the sila, remind them of those. Let's say a scenario would be something like this. Mom, do you remember how you would always help us when we would catch a spider or an insect? You would tell us, no, 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 take it outside. Put it in a glass jar, take it outside. Release it. Or when we would fight with each other, you would say, no hitting. Or when we would lie, you would say, don't lie. So what you're doing is you're reminding her of something that she has encouraged you to, while also infusing in her elements and seeds of what? Precepts, sila. So what you do is you're uplifting them, at least the 5 precepts. So I encourage you to do that. So list them all to them. But also, so that is also applying sati. And that is teaching them Dhamma as well. Now, coming back straight to your question in regards to Angulimala, it really doesn't matter, because what you know about Angulimala is simply the ones that you have in the suttas, in that life. It doesn't talk about the previous lives of Angulimala, and it definitely does not talk about your lives, plural, and the incredible harm that you and I have caused. We have been many times over Angulimalas, you know. We've killed our own parents, we've killed our own children. Animals do this all the time. One time I saw that in my balcony as a layman, I saw that some pigeons had come and built their nest. And one day I came and I saw that there were 3 eggs. They had laid them. So every day I would come from work as a teacher, I would just like excitedly look. I was like, did they hatch? Did they hatch? Did they hatch? And one day I came and I saw the eggs all had been broken. And there was blood all over. Blood. And suddenly I see the 2 pigeons come, the parents, and they were covered in blood. And I think there was 1 or 2 of the babies there that had been killed. The parents had killed the babies. Their own babies. So we've done far worse things. Well, we don't remember. The good news is, it doesn't matter how or what lays behind you. And that's one of the reasons why Lord Buddha always encouraged us to, at the very least, become a Sotapanna, so that you will never ever fall into the lower realms. At least you have 7 more lives, but you will never fall into the lower realms, including hell, including animal realms, where you will be one of those pigeons. One of the animals, the cows that will be slaughtered. So that's one of the reasons why Lord Buddha always urged his bhikkhus, his people, to listen and to practice so that you can attain the first stage. That guarantees you will never fall. Because there's countless vipakas, harsh, terrible, unimaginable amount of evil that we have done. And how do we know this? Because the lives that we have lived are simply countless. But it doesn't matter. If you go on a journey, it's the very last step that allows you to walk into your house. You might have gone walking around the planet, but it's that last step that will take you into the safety of your own home. That was Angulimala stepping into arahantship, but it took effort. It doesn't matter what lay behind him, but Lord Buddha urged him every day. It wasn't just him becoming a Sotapanna at meeting Lord Buddha. Lord Buddha did not stop. He kept on pushing him, until he became an arahant. Because if he had not, even as we say, 7 more lives as a Sotapanna, right? Those 7 lives, if he did not struggle enough, if they ended up being 7, they would have been incredibly difficult 7 lives. He might not have been reborn in the hell realm, but I know a lot of humans who've lived in hell, in human realm, but sometimes they would wish they were in hell, because it's extremely painful. One time when I was 12, they were doing a surgery because we were poor, and they had to do surgery on my foot. This was after my main injury that I had incurred, and I was 8 years old. So we were poor, so the government sent us to this hospital, which was basically almost like a butcher shop. So they had to, the doctor decided to amputate a portion of my foot, the toes, because it was fused together, and they didn't have the technology, nor did they offer to fix it. So they said, they gave me the option of just, we will take that off. I said, okay. My parents said yes, okay. I said, okay. I won't have to deal with the injury of the pus and the wounds every summer. It was very difficult living with that. So they took me to this hospital, and the doctor, and I'm thinking operating room or something, it's actually just any normal room. And the doctor just put one of these masks, regular masks. He didn't even have like proper gloves or anything, anesthesia. He just had one needle, stuck the needle without being too graphic into portion of the foot, my foot, and said, that's enough anesthesia. And it was not. And then I see him take out this saw. Yes. I was begging to die. And to such a point where my mother came inside and I kept holding her. I was crying so much. And they had to take her out because she started crying. So, but this man was going back and forth with the saw, and I was crying, and I knew just a few words in Arabic. And I said, stop, I need more of that medicine. I'm feeling it, you're seeing me cry. If I am not feeling it, I will not cry. Duh. But he was so adamant that he was like, no, you should not feel this. But I'm feeling it. And then something just went, and I knew that it came off. It was hell. That's still very minor compared to some other people who experienced far worse. So we've done things. So even as a human being, that's not safety. That's why Angulimala, if he had not become an arahant, he would have faced a lot of suffering, because he was already facing a lot of the results, the reactions to his actions, even while alive. Every day he would come back from Pindapada with his head cracked open, injured, robes would be torn, bruised. And Lord Buddha, one time he came and he's crawling. His bowl, which was made out of clay, it was cracked. And he was in pain, he was crying, he was bleeding too. And Lord Buddha turns to him and says, bear it, Brahmin, bear it, take it. Don't give up. And he became an arahant. I think at that time too, even after becoming an arahant. But he became such a beautiful human being, unrecognizable from the Angulimala, that one day he comes back from a village and he's distraught, he's sad. And he goes to Lord Buddha and he says, Bhante, today as I was on Pindapada, I heard this young sister. She was crying, she was in labor, she was in child labor, she was in pain. And Lord Buddha doesn't even wait, he says, go back to the village and go back to that sister and tell her, since the day of my birth, I have never hurt a single being. With this truth, may you, sister, be relieved of all your suffering, and may you and your child be at ease and safety. Something like that. And then he says, but Bhante, would that be true? Because since my birth, I became Angulimala, I was killing. He didn't understand what Lord Buddha was saying. Because when a person attains the states of awakening, they are reborn. You are never the same person you were before. Even at the stage of Sotapatti, you become a totally different person. And he says, in that case, say this. Since the day that I took on the robe, since the day that I became a bhikkhu, I have never hurt anyone. With the truth of this statement, sister, may you and your baby be relieved of your suffering and come out safely. And he goes back to the village and he asks that a veil be put between himself and because it's inappropriate for a bhikkhu to be in such a setting, but he had to be close enough for her to hear him. So they put this, they cover a drape between him, a divider, and he sits there on a stool and he says these words to her. And she delivers the baby safely. And from that day on, it has become part of the tradition. And not just for Buddhists, other places in Asia where people say these chants. It's part of the vandana we have in the parittas. So that comes because of his power as an arahant, the purity which comes from sila, samadhi, and panya. So I hope that answers your question. Any other thoughts, questions? Yes?
How does practitioners' awakening helps the parents? Because I thought I read somewhere, if a person is awakened, the practitioner, the person would help the parent, but I couldn't understand how.
Because of the enormous generosity of the parents. The parents might not even be Buddhist, but they helped you, let's say, to be born. Born as a human. Yes, you had to have the merits. So all these things combined, the conditions were there, appropriate, and then you're born as a human. And then your heart, because of its ambition and desire for the Dhamma, thirst for the Dhamma, finds the Dhamma. And you go and you don't stop. You pursue, hard work. And you attain. How did you attain? Because you have a body. Somebody had to spend sleepless nights to give you shelter, to wake up, to give you milk, to wipe you, to when you go to the bathroom, all these things, to take care of, to protect you, to give you safety. All of which is like devas protecting you every step of the way. And now, even after they're gone, they might have been both gone, dead and gone. But you there, as a result of all that selfless actions, it doesn't go to waste. Because they have made it available, possible, for there to be an Arya Savaka, you. Wherever they are in the universe, they benefit. If they're a deva already, their glow becomes brighter. They become more radiant. And if they are in a lower realm, like in the hell realms, or in the case of the sutta today, in a hungry ghost realm, if the conditions are there, but because this is something that removes them from the bottom of the list and puts them at the top of the list, if you want, you know, we use that term sometimes. You go at the top of the waiting list. Because your child just became an Arya. That person can find themselves suddenly moving from a hell realm all the way to a deva. Now, of course, they need to have some supportive elements. I know someone whose father was not a Buddhist, but he supported his son. He was not a very nice man, but he was also a generous man, but he did not keep sila much. But before he died, he started to say, I'm sorry a lot more. He was not such a mean person. He was no longer abusing this person. But then that child eventually becomes a noble disciple. But because the father doesn't know any of it, or doesn't understand even, notices some differences apparently in the child, who's not a child, by the way, he's an adult. Because of that, the father actually ends up in a heavenly realm. Not the highest, but still in that heavenly realm. Because he didn't have that much sila. But he was not a killer, he was not abusive in that sense, you know, he didn't break that many sila, but he could have lived a much better virtuous life, but he didn't, apparently. He ended up as a Gandhabba. Because he was a musician. He ended up in the Chatu Maharajika's realm as a musician. Because he loved music, but he ended up as a low-class deva. Low class. Because he could have practiced more sila, he could have practiced more dana, he could have practiced meditation, but he didn't. But the child's attainment of that Arya state impacts the parents absolutely, the mother and father. So I hope that helps. The Dhamma is alive, I keep telling you. And these are accounts, these are testimonials, these are things that are witnessed. And you know, whether talking about the devas or any other things, and you know, last week I was mentioning to some students about, you know, everybody, since coming to Asia, I hear a lot about, you know, evil spirits and petas and ghosts, what to do, Bhante, to protect ourselves from ghosts and things. I know in Thailand you go and there's a lot of amulets being made and blessed and tattoos on bhikkhus, which is absolutely adhamma. Adhamma. Completely against. Every temple, every Sri Lankan temple has apparently relics. I don't know how big the Buddha's body was to produce that many relics. Every place. It's like, how is that even possible, statistically? But we like to have these fictitious things. We forget. We need to move away from the ritualistic priestcraft nonsense, which does not belong to the Dhamma, and seek for the true protection of the Dhamma, not amulets, not tattoos for protection. It's all nonsense. It has no place in the Dhamma. No place. Its only place is in your heart and how you live your life. It's very, very, very personal. That's why the benefits spread and radiate. And your parents will feel that. They might not understand it, but something happens and they will know. It's like, what was that? That's more than just offering something, because their child became an Arya Savaka. That changes the fabric of the universe. And if they become an Arahant, earthquake happens. Beings become aware. This is not Star Wars, this is not fake, this is not myth. The suttas tell us, and our lives are testimonies to that. Let us find out. So practice, do your retreats. Any other thoughts? Because we are over. Oh yes.
What one can do for a recently departed loved ones. You were saying that there shouldn't be any rituals, but like reciting of mantras, are those rituals? Readings of mantras, for example, I was taught to do that, especially to a recently departed loved ones, for example. I mean, what are the things that we can do that are not rituals immediately that can actually transfer merits to them? But again, you say that we can't actually do that. But what are the things that we can do? Yeah, the living ones.
Oh, the last word, the two words you said, living ones. You who are living, what can you do? You can do a lot to the living first. So much, because they're easy access. There's no wondering, there's no ifs and buts and could-be's or would-be's. Everything is so blatantly clear, practically there. Yes, the mantras have a function to bring the mind together. Parittas, sutta chanting, all these things, because it helps to concentrate the mind, because you pulled yourself away from the outside world, from your hub, from the noise, from the normal life. And you feel like, okay, this is a different place. You create this sense of sacredness, at least the way you see the world. You might not even understand what mantras you're saying. But ultimately, it is the position of the mind we are talking about. All those things are simply tools to bring you back to the connection, the union, if you will, the awareness of understanding the heart, the mind. To put you in a different atmosphere, to become more connected with yourself, first and foremost, to pull you out of the depressive mode, the sadness, and from feeling helpless. But when you submerge yourself in rituals, many people get sucked in that because it's comfier, it's more comfortable than to look at the reality of life that, oh my, there is death. You mean to say I have no control over my life ultimately? Yes. For 2.5 years, everybody on the planet has been struggling so hard to give themselves an extension of life somehow, infinite life. They're going to be deathless because of the mask, because of this, because of that, as if we're not going to die. We have all been fooled. Meanwhile, the fact is staring at us in the face. People die. They've been dying. Guess what? Tomorrow they will still die. That is a harsh realization for many people, because we are fooled into thinking, I'm going to work, I'm going to get an education, I'm going to work, I'm going to make money, I'm going to have a family, I'm going to be wealthy, I'm going to do. Nobody takes death into consideration. In fact, in the West, even death has become some form of business transaction, where you go ahead and you buy insurance policies so that you can leave big chunk of money for your relatives, loved ones. So even death we use for some business from some profit. We've even monetized death. And plus, before you die, you have to go and buy insurance for funeral in America. My family members, my sisters, went and bought the land and a cemetery for funeral place, and they paid for everything, so my children don't have to pay for anything, she says. So even that is taken care of. But when you look at the amount of money people spend on death, there's a business there. But all these things pull you away from the reality that death will happen to you and me. So be careful, that's what I'm trying to say. Be careful when you use the mantras to make the fact of death become a little bit more softer. Instead of an opportunity for you to go deeper into your own attachments towards life, towards rejection of anicca, dukkha, anatta. Anicca is impermanence, which death tells you, yeah, things are impermanent. Suffering is dukkha. You losing your loved one is dukkha. That's a fact. Everything else in the life around you is trying to tell you these two things don't exist. That's what life is telling you. When you buy things, when you buy nice clothes, all you're doing, makeup, changing your hair color, this and that, what are you trying? People spend millions of dollars on plastic surgery until their faces glow because the skin is pulled so far back. Trying to fool themselves that anicca doesn't happen. Meanwhile, every one of us is walking towards the grave. So the wise person, Lord Buddha says, uses death, uses the fact, the reality of death to break free. Now, you don't have to become a bhikkhu either. Even though many of the bhikkhus of Lord Buddha became bhikkhus because someone really close to them died, or they came really close to death. So death is a shaker of reality, and in many cases a bringer of Dhamma into your life. Death. So death can be a celebration instead of something to run away from. So many people use the rituals, the mantras, the pujas as a way to run away from death. So my thing is, don't turn it into that. What you can do is you can meditate, you can practice dana, like I was saying throughout the sutta. Being kind to your neighbor. Don't be a jerk, don't be an angry person because you lost someone so dear to you. Instead, show them your humanity. That is a celebration of the person you lost. Because you never gained the other person to lose them in the first place. We are just on a journey. We meet each other. We say hi, we shake hands, we dance together, we hug, but we're on a different journey. We have to say goodbye, we walk. Because as that gentleman was saying over there about Angulimala, we don't know how far we've come and what we've done, and it has to catch up to us. So see, feel the pain, but use it as a stepping stone to go into a higher, deeper place in you. And that is going to make you stronger. When you start celebrating death, you've conquered it. You beat it. Unfortunately, most of us are running away from death. That's the problem. We're trying to outsmart our way out of death. And that's not healthy, because that's what many people use rituals for. We're trying to outsmart. Everywhere you go, as a child, I was growing up, people would say, oh, I'm sure Uncle Joe or somebody is in the heavens now looking down at us. How do you know? In Buddhism, we have something similar. May he attain eternal bliss of Nibbana. When? Oh, in the next life, sometime later. What's wrong with this life? How come he didn't do it here? This is the richest soil, the best soil for Nibbana. You being alive is a miracle. It's incredibly rare to be a human being who's able to understand what I'm saying, who has the patience to sit through this much time, to feel the pain of losing someone, not to crack, not to lose yourself, to hold yourself strong, to smile. That takes guts. And to say, like I was saying yesterday to someone else who lost someone very dear to her as well, I said, in these moments, the most crucial thing you must never forget to do is to place one foot in front of the other and just walk, even if it feels like you have no reason to. Because this too shall pass, no matter how terrible it is. See, most of us think of anicca as something bad. We never look at anicca as also possibly something good. Anicca is the thing that is going to make your wound become less painful. In fact, one day that wound is going to close up and it's going to be a scar. A scar that is a lesson that you learned about life. Worst thing you could do is think and look at this wound, the losing of this someone, as something that's eternal. Be careful. That is wrong view. That's what I would say. Is this helping you, what I'm sharing? If you like, I can speak to you afterwards also. Yes, sister?
Followed by this, as a practitioner, we don't follow ritual. But just like what he said, the departed one someone you love, someone your good friend who just go away. What should we do? as a practitioner and a Buddhist, we so-called lay practitioner, where we know that, oh, this way ritual, not the way, but of course we don't interrupt. What I mean, as a personal capacity, what should we do? See, this is what happened to my friend last week, so I don't know what to do. So I only do Namo Tassa and I read through all the Buddha Saranang and all the 5 precepts. I don't know, is that what I'm supposed to do? I don't know. One day, maybe we go off, or even my husband, or even parents go off, what should we do to do a right way?
Yes. I appreciate these questions because they're so practically real life human issues. You know, when a child is born, you know what to do. You make sure there's a cradle, there's bedding, there's, you know, diapers, there's this, there's milk, there's this, there's that. So what do we do when someone is leaving or dead? What do you do? Of course you need to take care of the body. Of course, very basic things, right? You need to make sure you know, in our case, cremation and things like that. You handle those things. You handle their affairs, any administrative stuff, logistical stuff, etc. Settling of these financial things, etc., of the person. Those are the easy ones. But what do you do with the emotional residue, the effect of it? That could be one way of looking at your question. But the deeper issue, I think, is my relationship to the fact of losing this person usually is the problem. Because everything has to take you, everything has to help you to understand the Dhamma better. Everything that happens to you is happening to help you as an opportunity to reveal the Dhamma in a clearer light. That's one way that I would like to address your question. How is this helping me now? That's something that I would give to my therapy patients. If they're dwelling on something, always ask the question, how is this helping me now? If you have a negative thing that you say to yourself in the mind, always ask, how is this helping me now? Because when someone dies, you immediately start thinking of the worst, the loss. There's always this sense of like losing of balance. How is this helping me now? Is this helping me? And in what way? It definitely can help if you are using Dhamma Vicaya, investigation of mind objects. Is this leaving your mind unclear, restless, agitated, or not? So, is this addressing your question?
I actually wanted to know, not so much to my relationship with the departed one, but it's as a what should we do? Of course, the funeral will be taken care by the caretaker, all the thing there. But what should we do to, like, we don't say transferring merit, maybe to help the one who gone. As a normal people, normally, and maybe beside them, whether you are reading mantra, chanting, or something.
I see. Now we're getting closer to what you...
That's what I meant.
You remember what Janussoni was asking. He was asking the same question, but in a different way. He was saying, I think, because my parents have taught me that if I do this ritual called Shraddha, that I'm helping the person who has passed. And Lord Buddha for 45 years was teaching people that if you're going to make any changes in your life, it better be now when you are alive, and you are alive. Even when my mother was ill, terribly, with cancer, she was getting all these bad, treatments. As far as bad, I say, it's like chemotherapy and things which kill the body because it's going after the symptoms, not the cause. And the person you see shriveling like a raisin, they're dying in front of your eyes. And me, with my own abilities, I'm trying to do something, whatever abilities I thought I had, prayer, this, that. Nothing. So I would go on long fasts. I would not eat for several days. And I would sit in my room, I would concentrate on my mother getting better, and all of a sudden the doctors would come and say, we don't know how, but she's now eating. In fact, you can take her home now. Meanwhile, half her internal organs are gone. So they didn't know what was happening, I didn't know what was happening, but I thought, yeah, whatever I'm doing, she's getting up, she's okay. So she would come home, and then I would get tired and physically exhausted from not eating. So I would start eating, and I would say, okay, my mother's back, okay, she was only 47. And then all of a sudden she would get she would lose all that. I said, okay, and we would have to rush her back. So it was back and forth like this. But it has to come from the person involved. Ultimately, it's their journey. They have to, and that's why you can only take the responsibility of your own self, ultimately. So you have to ask the right question, and ask the right request from yourself, or expect. So don't expect so much from yourself that I have to be able to help the person who departed. Who said that? There's only so much. What if the person is now born as a mouse? How can you help them? Unless you know which planet they are born as a mouse, and then you can go find out which country, which neighborhood, which mouse family, I guess. So you see, it's futile. Even the relationships we have with this particular person, it's temporary. Because there was a time where you didn't know them. They didn't know you. You make this connection. So now, then, it is not the person that we are mourning, it is the relationship and their significance. So we are hurt. That's what it is. You want to close up that pain by rituals. So the ointment of ritual is only going to last so much. But these are important questions. I feel this is good, and that's why I'm choosing these suttas, because they're collecting dust. They are gems, and unfortunately, if we don't access these suttas, they were spoken by Lord Buddha for a reason. We're so lucky that they're still around, 2,000, almost 600 years later, we still have it. And they're teaching us so much about life, our lives. These are real issues, these are real human experiences you're talking about. People suffer. This is real. This is more real than what happens in a ritual. That's what I'm trying to say. How can we deal with it? And that's what Lord Buddha was presenting in the sutta. So if we can take that with us, you have so much control while you are alive of yourself, control over yourself, and where you will end up. So don't take your life too lightly. When I say go ahead and smile, smile. You're doing it for yourself first. It releases so much tension. The only time some people feel is when they lose someone. Do you know that? Why does it have to be like that? Why do you have to lose someone in your life in order for you to feel? Can't you feel while they were alive too? I think so. Brother Leslie? Yes? So, let us do the dedication of merit. Akasatha chabhumata deva nagamahidika punyantang anumoditva chirangrakhantu lokasasanam. Akasatha chabhumata deva nagamahidika punyantang anumoditva chirangrakhantu sasanam. Akasatha chabhumata deva nagamahidika Punyantam anumoditva chirang rakantu man paranti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you all be well. May you progress, blossom, and reach its fulfillment in state of nobility, but it will come through your practice. So may your efforts in listening to the Dhamma be fruitful, and may you soon come to realize the truth that is nirvana in this very life, in this body, in this body. Sukhi hotu.